Okay, let's dive into this. We all think we know what school is supposed to be. It's about growth, curiosity, learning, right? But what if the whole thing, from kindergarten all the way to college, is actually just a giant, really complex game? A game with clear rules, players who are all acting rationally, and some pretty high stakes. Today, we're going to put on our game theory glasses and decode the education system to see what's really going on.
And that brings us to the big mystery we're trying to solve here. We're told school will create these curious, collaborative, critical thinkers who just love to learn. So why does the reality so often feel like this frantic race for grades that just leaves everyone, students, parents, even the teachers, completely burned out? Why is there such a massive, frustrating gap between what's promised and what we actually get?
So here's our game plan. First, we're going to break down this education paradox. Then we'll meet all the key players in the game. After that, we'll uncover the surprisingly simple rule they're all following, see how that plays out in the real world, and finally, we'll ask the million-dollar question. Can you even change the game?
Okay, so let's start with that fundamental disconnect, the education paradox. It isn't just a small complaint. It's this deep, structural gap between the really noble goals we have for our schools and the often pretty disappointing results we see day in and day out.
I mean, just look at this slide. It lays it out so clearly. On the one hand, you have the stated goals, right? The stuff you see in all the brochures. We want to teach critical thinking. But what's the reality? Declining attention spans. We say we value collaboration, yet the system is built on this fierce competition for the top spot. The big dream is to create lifelong learners, but for so many people, school does the exact opposite. It creates a real aversion to learning. And instead of deep literacy, we're seeing poor reading comprehension. It just feels broken.
And, this isn't just a problem in one country. Not at all. It is a systemic, global thing. Whether you're looking at the insane pressure to get into elite colleges in the US, the grueling exam prep schools in South Korea, or the high-stakes testing culture in India, you see this exact same paradox over and over again. It's basically a core feature of the modern education game pretty much everywhere.
So, if this problem is everywhere, you have to ask, why? Well, the answer starts to make sense when you shift your perspective. When you stop looking at school as just this idealistic place for learning and start seeing it for what it actually is, a game. A game with a bunch of different players all playing to win. So, let's meet them.
And the players are exactly who you'd think they are. You've got the students, of course, right at the center of it all. You have their parents, who are, deeply invested in their kids' success. You've got teachers on the front lines, and the school administrators who run the whole show. And then, setting the bigger rules, you've got colleges defining what success even looks like, and the government setting policy. Every single one of these players has their own goals and motivations.
Okay, so every game has rules. But in the education game, it turns out there's one simple core principle that's way more powerful than any mission statement or official curriculum. It's this single, rational idea that shapes how every single one of those players behaves.
And here it is. It's so simple. Everyone wants the best result with the least amount of effort. Now, this is so important. This is not about being lazy. Not at all. It's about being efficient. It's about rational people looking at a complicated system, figuring out what the rewards are, good grades, a good job, a top ranking, and then finding the absolute shortest, most direct path to get there. It's just human nature.
And this one desire for efficiency, it's like an invisible hand that shapes the entire system. It's the key that unlocks the whole paradox we started with. Because what's most efficient for one player is often not what's best for the system's big, lofty goals.
All right, so we've met the players, and we know the one rule they're all following. So now, let's get to the good part. Let's see what actually happens when all these players, acting totally rationally and efficiently, start playing the game. This is where we connect those individual choices to the big, frustrating outcomes.
Okay, let's walk through this. Start with the student. What's their main incentive? Get top grades, get into a good college. So what's the most efficient, least effort strategy? Well, it's not always deep learning. It's memorizing just enough to ace the test. And the system-wide outcome of that? No deep understanding. Now, the parent. They want their kid to succeed. The most direct path for them, focus on test prep and school rankings. The result? A culture of fierce competition. What about the teacher? Their job is often judged by student test scores, so the most rational strategy is to teach to the test. This directly leads to a lack of real critical thinking in the classroom. And finally, the school admin. They're judged by rankings, so they prioritize the metrics over the messy process of actual learning. And that gives us a narrow, test-focused curriculum. You see the pattern here? Nobody is the bad guy. Everyone is just making the smartest choice for themselves inside the game.
This quote just nails it. The results we see, the competition, the anxiety, the shallow learning, they aren't because of one bad policy or a bunch of lazy students. It's an emergent property of the entire system, where every single player, acting in their own best interest, creates a collective result that nobody actually wanted in the first place.
So this is probably the most important takeaway. It is so tempting to blame the players, right? To say students should just be more curious or parents should be less pushy. But they aren't the problem. They are playing the game they've been put in, and honestly, they're playing it perfectly. They're responding exactly as they should to the incentives the system has given them.
So all of this naturally leads us to the biggest question of all. If the players are all behaving rationally, and the incentives are what's creating the problem, then what's the solution? Is it even possible to change the game?
Before we even get to solutions, we have to let this one sink in. The system is not broken. In fact, it is working perfectly according to its own logic. The competition, the memorizing for the test, these aren't accidents. They aren't bugs in the system. They are features of the game.
And we can actually see different games in the real world. Just look at the contrast here. High-stakes systems, like in the US, India, and Korea, they build their whole game around one main thing, individual scores. And that rule naturally leads to competition and memorization. But then you look at a place like Finland. The rules of their game are just different. They incentivize collaboration and teacher autonomy instead of standardized tests. When you change the core incentive, you get a completely different game, and that, logically, leads to completely different outcomes, like more collaboration and deeper understanding.
And that leaves us with one last big question to think about. If every student, every parent, every teacher is making the most logical choice they can within the rules they've been given, have we been spending all of our time and energy trying to fix the players when maybe we should have been trying to fix the game itself?